making some progress. Here's 2 crib pits in the garage. Since we framed up this wall, we took the load off the garage roof, and the guy from the house moving company just happened to be in the neighborhood, and he took the cribs out. So now you can see what we're going to have 11 more of. The pit, garbage gets cleaned out, gravel gets added to the bottom, plastic, sand, and then we have all of these pieces of rebar sticking up, and they all get bent down. 520 rebar, 520 vertical pieces of rebar to bend down and tie together to essentially complete the grid. A lot of work, but that's just how it's going to be. Then here's the sidewall of the garage. It still has a huge twist in it, even though we put these studs in as best possible. And I'm having a little argument with the boss right now, / partner. I feel pretty strongly that we need to straighten this out by furring the outside. We're going to talk about it later. Hopefully I win. And over here, we're making a bunch of dust. Rolando's cleaning out the forms. But I can just give a little demonstration here of the way the two-sided forms work. This is the real way that you build a wall, and that is 2x4s on either side, and then these guys right here, which are called wedge ties. And what you do is you put your wedge tie on the form. These are WT for wedge tie, WT8. That means 8 inches. The width here is 8 inches. There's a little tab on the wedge tie that makes these things fit in perfectly, although this one's a little tight and that has to be tweaked. So you put these guys in, and then you take one of these wedges and slip it in the groove. And when you pour the concrete, the pressure on the wall pushing that way and pushing this way pushes against the wedge on the wedge tie and keeps the form from exploding. Then the only problem you have is stitching the outside corners together, but that's another technique. Then after you strip the form, it's real easy. You just pop the wedge out, just tap the bottom with a hammer, and then you have this little end sticking out of the concrete, and you just take your hammer claw and grab that and twist it, and it snaps right off, and then you end up with clean concrete. And you can do like 12-foot tall walls with that. And that's it for now. Oh, here we go. This is one more thing. This was a big problem that I didn't even realize we have. Yesterday I rebuilt this wall, and this wall carries the load of the outside of the main house. There's a huge load on these studs, and this rim right here was completely broken. That's where the fireplace used to be. This is where the big 6x14 beam used to be underneath. That carries a massive load. I mean, it carries a quarter of the house, and it was literally just floating, and the only thing that was really holding it was the crib holding this beam, holding these joists that cantilever over. Well, that's all fine and everything until you get to the very outside edge. And I'm going to jump up here. This is going to be a little awkward. One of the problems here is that the plate that used, or the rim that used to be in here, was detached from these joists. And even though this beam was holding up these joists, that should be enough to cantilever over and support this wall. Because all of this was broken and cracked, what you can see is that this wall sunk down. You can see the flooring right here is broken because this wall actually slipped and moved down a little bit. So what I've done is I just wedged in a little piece of plywood here to duplicate the flooring that was broken off. And if you look underneath here, I've sistered on these joists right here that sit on the beam and come out and bear on this wall. And that beam is going to stay. And that's what's going to continue to carry the load of those joists. But when I put these studs in, I first tried jacking up this wall. There's 45,000 pounds on this crib over here, which means there needs to be about 45,000 pounds of pressure on what's left of this hacked up wall. So when I put these studs in, I put a hydraulic jack right next to it, loaded it up to about 8,000 pounds each, and then slipped the little stud in. So each one of these, that's not how you normally put studs in. Normally you just bang them in with a hammer and whatever, they'll take a couple hundred, 1,000 pounds by the time you wedge them in. But if you count these guys up, each one of these on this corner is loaded up with a jack to 8,000 pounds. And each one of these is loaded up to about 8,000 pounds as well. And now, with my continuous rim in there, I'm feeling pretty good about this side of the house again. Not great, and you can actually see right here how much the plane of this has changed over time. This should be up here, but it can't be. That's how much it's slipped. Over here it hasn't slipped as much. This is right to the bottom of the original subfloor, and clearly you can see the difference. This side's really crazy. And that's about it. Oh, one more thing about that. One thing that's great about the house mover is that he knew we were going to have a problem here, and he recommended that we put in this 3-stud shoring wall above the beam to carry the floor joists above, so that there would be some direct support of the second floor. And that was a very good thing, because had he not noticed that, I certainly would not have caught it. We could have had a lot worse situation right here when he went to jack. So, good one on Mike. Okay, that's it.